All right, we're ready to wrap up the series. The last thing we're going to talk about is adding a button on click to the entire table. So not in each row like you saw it in the last example, but we're going to add a button to the top. What is the difference between the two? Okay, we are still in integration setting of using the add button click, but this time we chose the option of using the entire table. There's a new field that comes over here called button content. And really what that's just saying, and I'll show it to you in the demo, is like, what is it that we're actually going to pass back to FileMaker that was in here? So it's kind of flexible. It allows you to say, hey, I'm going to put something in this field, and that's what you're going to pass back to me. And then we, of course, can change some other things about the buttons that we talked about. But the code for the button on the entire table is a little bit different. I mean, we're looking at this function called clicking the ID, and then all we're doing inside of it is showing, what is it that we're passing. We're constructing that same JSON object, calling the same FileMaker script, and performing that. So pretty simple, same what we've been used to. The only difference that we're doing here is that we are now taking the code that we constructed in when we said we're doing this for the entire table, and we're actually inserting it into the HTML DOM. So we can put this little tiny piece of code here that runs this, and that will display in the data table. So this one might be easier to see in the demo, so hop over there with me and let's check it out. We're in the last video demo file of this series on adding integrations. And in this one, we're going to talk about adding a button on click for the entire table. Let's take a look at what that does. So again, let's process our record by duplicating the last one and getting ourselves set up for the button click for the entire table. So we're going to say entire table here. Okay, everything else can stay the same. And for purposes of just cleaning it up, I'm just going to remove the integration completely and show you that in the preview, the buttons are gone when I remove this integration. They should also be gone from the columns. So when you remove an integration that had a button in a row, and I then delete those records for you out of the column, so the button doesn't appear as something that's going to be there. All right, so let's go and do our last integration here, where we're going to add an on button click. And this time we're going to choose the entire table. When we do that, there is a new button that appears. It may have value to you. I'm just going to point out how it's going to pass back, but we're still at the same point where we can define this button. And I'm going to say, we're going to do some things, hello again at the top. And then it has a class down here that is by default. And then this content is really what you're actually saying is inside the button. We'll look at that in a moment. So let's hit submit and close. And if you look on our integration, there is only something that's small. It's basically saying when I click a button, what's going to happen? And basically I'm saying, what was the event? What triggered it? And that's the content that we were talking about, what was inside, and then some other information. However, there is nothing in the columns because we aren't actually adding this to the row. When I hit the preview, where did the button go? You see it up here at the top. It says hello. There's nothing in the integration here right now for clicking. So how does this get here? That actually appears in some code in the HTML. So right here is when you click the entire table, this code has been added to the HTML to be able to say, hey, my input ID is the button content. And when I go find that over in my results here, I got to go find my HTML. Excuse me. It's above this. My apologies. We're going to get to it. It's right here. It's saying, replace button content with button content, replace the button class with the button with the word that we had in class, and replace the button name with whatever we had in that field. So it's automatically substituting that. I'm putting values in there just so that the code doesn't break, that you have something. But if you actually did take this out, it would still work in most cases. So that is how the button appears up here at the top. Again, we haven't stylized this at all. We're just showing how to add a button. If I click hello, what am I expecting to see? So when I do this, right now, I am actually still performing that button on click script. And so I'm returning the one that came from that FileMaker code. The report name and the table name are actually what is being triggered in this response, but on the trigger, it's the button content. So let's take a little bit closer look at that. If we go back to our integration and we're looking at this, the button content is this. And sometimes what you might want to do is tell the user that they clicked something like add new contact, right? And down here in the name, we're going to say add contact. And so the class will leave alone. When I do that and I come back here, the button is something that I'm doing that's actually still in the JavaScript, right? It's not, this isn't a FileMaker button. It is in the web viewer. When I hit add contact, I'm telling you when the person clicked that to still call a FileMaker script, but pass it some information. So in this case, I'm just saying the button that was triggered, the content that was in it was add new contact. So when the script gets that, it says, oh, the person wants to add a new contact, let me go do that and take that action. So kind of consider this as a way for you to say, what do I want to do on this report? And, maybe it's send an email or export something or do something else. But this is how you can control adding a button to the top of your table or some other location by placing it differently in the HTML and having it perform a web viewer action to call a FileMaker script. So that's how adding a button to a table works. Think about the possibilities for yourself. And in the next upcoming series, we are going to start looking at how to stylize these reports that we built with the CSS tab so that we can add features like styling to the buttons, right alignment. We can do a lot more to make your report pretty. So we will see you in the next series. Thank you for joining me on integrations. I hope it was helpful.